Dr. Richard Davidson is a psychologist and a neuroscientist. With his team, they've done comprehensive research about meditation's impact on the brain. In 2001, he invited Buddhist monks from Tibet and Nepal to his lab to see if brain's electrical signals would show anything unusual when meditating. What they found was remarkable. Gamma oscillation in the brain is happening for all of us, but for an ordinary person, brain can emit gamma for only a fraction of a second. But for a veteran meditator, the signals were higher in amplitude, highly synchronized, and were lasting for tens of minutes. Interestingly, their brain signals were also significantly different when they were not meditating. So, is it enough to just do meditation, or are there other factors that we should be mindful of? Burkhard Heim, a German theoretical physicist, represents a concept called the 12-dimensional information field. We humans, with our current density of energy, are living in the third and fourth dimension, which makes us perceive the world the way we do now. But according to this theory, there are different dimensions of consciousness, or in another word, different densities of energy. As Einstein said, everything is energy. So we, as a part of this multidimensional energetic universe, might be able to evolve through and into higher dimensions of consciousness. The fifth and the sixth dimension here relate to the evolution of mental consciousness, where the heart and the mind can unify. This can let us access higher dimensions information. Then the next levels relate to the quantum field of the universe, which enables us to start tapping into data that exists in the quantum field of the universe. Unfortunately, talking about it is beyond the scope of this topic. Now, if all of these are true, then can we assume beings such as Jesus or Buddha Shakyamuni were able to break through and access these higher dimensions? Can we say that enlightenment is not just a religious symbolic definition, but rather an innate capability of human beings? So if all true, in that case, what's stopping us? What sort of energetic blockages we are encountering that prevent us from ascending to higher levels?
Mistake that we've made between the interpretation of two of our most important and positive emotions, pleasure and happiness. A lot of people equate the two, but I'm here to tell you that they are completely different. Pleasure is short-lived, happiness is long-lived. Pleasure is visceral, happiness is ethereal. Pleasure is taking, happiness is giving. Pleasure can be achieved with substances, happiness cannot be achieved with substances. So the more pleasure you seek, the more unhappy you get. And Las Vegas, Madison Avenue, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and Washington, D.C. have very specifically and in a coordinated fashion confused and conflated the term happiness with the term pleasure, so that you can buy happiness, so that they can sell you their junk.
Big sales in a stampede. Shoppers pushed and shoved their way through Black Friday today, one of the busiest shopping days of the year, of course.
Substances that drive pleasure rather than happiness. And in the process, we have become most decidedly unhappy.
It's clear that the world was and remains unprepared for a pandemic.
The prospect of nuclear conflict, once unthinkable, is now back within the realm of possibility.
The frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt
The World Health Organization called an emergency meeting to discuss the recent outbreak of monkeypox.
And Vladimir Putin's nuclear and chemical threats.
Because there will be another pandemic.
The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
North Korea now has the capacity to land its own nuclear missile.
So we have to prepare for a more angry world.
From basically European intellectual inquiry into what the heck happened in Germany in the 20s and 30s. You know, very intelligent, highly educated population, and they went barking mad. And how did that happen? The answer is mass formation psychosis. When you have a society that has become decoupled from each other and has free-floating anxiety and a sense that things don't make sense, we can't understand it, and then their attention gets focused by a leader or a series of events on one small point, just like hypnosis, they literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere. And one of the aspects of that phenomena is the people that they identify as their leaders, the ones typically that come in and say, you have this pain and I can solve it for you. I and I alone, okay, can fix this problem for you. Okay, then they will follow that person through. It doesn't matter whether they lie to him or whatever. The data are irrelevant. And furthermore, anybody who questions that narrative is to be immediately attacked. They are the other. This is central to mass formation psychosis. And this is what has happened. We had all those conditions. If you remember back before 2019, everybody was complaining, the world doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. And we're all isolated from each other. We're all on our little tools. We're not connected socially anymore, except through social media. And then this thing happened and everybody focused on it. That is how mass formation psychosis happens. And that is what's happened here.
If I look at the future and our role in the global governance system, we will concentrate much more on systems design for the future.
In George Orwell's 1984, the party has 3 slogans. War is peace, freedom is a slavery, and ignorance is a strength. These paradoxes are the way of the party to control people. So, on the one hand, we have this constant state of fear, never-ending cycle of crisis, which can be corresponded to the war is peace slogan. Orwell says, the war is waged by its ruling group against its own subjects, and its object is not a victory over Eurasia or East Asia, but to keep the very structure of society intact. On the other hand, the absolute materialistic view that is being promoted more and more in today's culture makes us believe that control and possession of materials is more important than things such as human values or spirituality. This is ignorance is a strength slogan, being so busy craving for pleasure and desire that makes us ignore our greatest built-in power as human beings. It seems like we've always been kept at a low-level frequency, which I like to call the chaos frequency. But how to break through from it? I think there are 2 factors for this. One would be to set free from this free-floating anxiety created by the never-ending crisis. Start from ourselves and stop this mass psychosis. Of course, we cannot stop the crisis and there will be difficulties. But let's say when and if the next crisis comes, for example, if a food shortage comes along, there are always 2 approaches we can take. One would be to wait for an outside solution, a big brother to come and rescue us, which usually leads us to giving up our freedoms too. Or we can act locally, couple locally with people around us. You think it's not possible? Well, during both World War I and World War II, a severe food crisis emerged, but a movement called the Victory Garden Campaign started in the USA in order to fight the food shortage. So people started to turn their backyards, rooftops, school grounds into small farms and started planting and storing their own fruit and vegetables. The movement spread through word of mouth nationwide. The campaign served as a successful means of boosting morale and safeguarding against food shortages. In 1944, over 20 million families planted Victory Gardens, producing around 8 million tons of food. The second factor to focus is to change our way of life. Accept the fact that we may have blindly just followed what has been promoted as values and goals for us. It's exactly like how we have mixed up happiness with pleasure. We need to be less attached to material pursuits, but this doesn't mean losing benefits such as money. The point is to not to be attached to them. Why? Because pursuit and greed bring selfishness. When our minds are less occupied by desire and greed, there will be less noise, less blockages to drag us down. With less selfishness, there's gonna be more room for compassion, more chances to self-reflect and work on our shortcomings, and in turn, improve our character. With developing more compassion and building up a stronger character, we'll start to see that more capacity is unlocking from within us. We start to experience what happiness can be. Compassion replaces selfishness. A bone-deep tolerance which is free from complaint will replace anxiety and insecurity. In this way, we get more and more independent, no matter how chaotic things will be. We then can activate this dormant potential that we have. Our energy frequency then can be more harmonized and reinforced this way. And things such as meditation then can have the effect they should have. We need to cherish ourselves. Human body and human mind are really a blessing, a temple. And when they work properly via true practice and meditation, we can transcend the chaos frequency and find a higher truth.